I actually just came back from the London 2012 Paralympics 2 weeks ago, so it was an awesome opportunity, but I wanted to give you a little background on how I got there. So I was born with a benign tumor that caused a partial paralysis to my spine. And what that led to was me using a wheelchair full-time at the age of around 7. And I had amazing parents that never really let that get in the way of me doing anything. I was always encouraged at a very young age to pursue whatever I wanted to. And for me, that was sport. Immediately I took to track, baseball, golf, anything I could do in a wheelchair, I'd do it. And it wasn't until I was 14 that I discovered wheelchair tennis. And my mom often talks about, when I started picking up the sport, she would say that you said that it clicked. So that's the word when I describe tennis, it clicked. There was something about being independent and being on court alone and not having a whole team, because I had played the whole sledge hockey and basketball thing, and I was always the ball hog. I always wanted all the attention. And tennis to me was the one sport where the spotlight's on you. And what that means is when you win, it's all on your shoulders, and when you lose, it's all on your shoulders. So I would take it that much harder when I lost. So as a junior, I pursued the sport quite a bit. I had a chance to see the world at a very young age, going to events in France, Netherlands, across Europe. And that was so amazing for me because it was a chance for me to see the world. And for someone in a wheelchair, who actually didn't really think of himself as someone in a wheelchair, I think a lot of people saw what I could do with tennis and saw how far I was going with the sport, and it just led to really where I am today. And tennis had always been something that I had done primarily on the side. I'd always pursued education, going to university, getting a job right after university. And in all honesty, it wasn't until a few years ago that I basically sat myself down and said, I think I'm losing focus on what I'm really good at. And to me, wheelchair tennis was it. I had coaches and colleagues and everyone saying, Joel, why don't you just play tennis full time? And to me, I'm pretty sure I fell into the trap of just focusing on what my friends were focusing on, and that was a career, working your way up the corporate ladder. And to be fair, my tennis suffered because of that. And it's very tough working on Bay Street and pursuing a tennis career at the same time. So I had to make a really tough decision a few years ago to leave my position in the financial industry and go for it full time in wheelchair tennis. Now, at the time I made that decision, I was ranked number 4 in Canada. I was outside the top 100, and I didn't really know how far I would actually go when I did it full time. And my main goal was to get to London 2012. So this was a 2-year process in which I had to pursue going for London. So when I made the decision, I decided, okay, let's treat wheelchair tennis as a job. So I decided to hire more coaches. I hired a fitness trainer. I hired a mental coach because God knows in tennis you are messed up in the head at all times. Tennis players are actually known for talking to themselves on the court, and oftentimes you interrupt yourself as you're thinking to yourself. So anyway, one of the things in wheelchair tennis is I had to get my mind clear and focus solely on tennis. And keeping my mind clear was one of the main things that I think really assisted me in terms of getting to the next level. So immediately I started noticing, my shots were improving. I was having more success in tournaments. And wheelchair tennis, it's a worldwide tour, so it's played around the world. So I wasn't just playing here in North America. I had to go to Europe, I had to go to Africa, I had to go to Korea, I had to go everywhere, you can name it, to play these tournaments. And I started working my way up the ladder, and by the summer of last year, I vaulted to number 1 in Canada, which was awesome after only 4 months of doing it full time. And I was having fun doing it as well, and not really worrying about the financial repercussions of being a full-time athlete, which unfortunately in Canada is a big deal with lack of funding. So. But it's amazing what led me to here because of that choice. I had a chance to represent Canada at the Pan Am Games, and I had a chance to meet so many different inspiring people along the way. And just seeing what other people were doing with their passions and just with their abilities was inspiring to me as well. And I felt like as someone who played wheelchair tennis, I could do the same thing.